there's a trade-off, right? Making very precise recommendations are easy for, analysts, particularly non-PhD economists, just to implement. It's like, cool, we're gonna do something, we're gonna get apples to apples, it's fine. Um, versus providing lots of flexibility. And so what I think is in the finalized version of the 2023 A4 is like, here's a precise way to do it, but not a requirement to do it following if it, like, here's like a benchmark that might be useful, is I think how that's presented, as opposed to like, you will do it this way.
I think on inequality aversion, I think the I mean, my interpretation of that is you don't need inequality aversion for the declining marginal utility of income to justify distributional weights. For reasons of legitimacy, for reasons of standing up in court, I think that the idea was to do what's kind of most standard in economics. We're not trying to we were not trying to push the boundary of economic science here. We were instead trying to reflect what is out there in literature. And declining marginal utility of income is the standard thing in economics. So we thought it was worth pointing primarily to that. But of course, that's not to say that that's not that prioritarianism is wrong or bad. I guess one final thought on this, especially if, as you think about adopting numbers that are more redistributive than would be implied by the results by the numbers that we have, things that are more redistributive than log utility, say, it's worth writing up examples. Here's community A, here's community B. What would their income be? And with a given set of weights, or with a given set of distributional weights, how much weights? What would the weights be between, 75th percentile community and 25th percentile community, or something like that, and just see how much those seem like numbers that seem workable. Well, there are ways that even with a given elasticity without a range, there are ways that agencies can limit the scope of the weights. For example, you can have that elasticity, but then you could bound the weights below by 1. There's nothing in the guidance that says that agencies could not do that. So that would be a way of facially helping out low-income communities, but not hurting high-income communities. Though, of course, resources are fixed. But in case no one would have a weight below 1. So that's one way of doing it, even with one number. In terms of a range, that's typically not been the practice of the Office of Management and Budget. So the most important thing changed, to my mind, in the guidance was the discount rate. In the case of spending, the discount rate was lowered from 7%, which among the people we talked to, no one could justify, to a real rate of 7%, to about 3%. This relates to it having been from 1992, and when interest rates were higher, for example. And so there's one number then, there's one number now for the discount rate for regulations used to be 3 and 7. Now it's just 2. So you could have a range. Something that I learned talking to government, the people implementing it on the ground, is that they wanted guidance. I'm not sure they would have wanted a range. So when I say I was talking to people on the ground, I was talking to government employees, to career civil servants. I'm not sure they would have wanted a range. I think they would have viewed it as most helpful to them if they got a number. Like they're not, they haven't spent 40 years thinking about it, and they need to get their grants out. So I think it might have been most helpful for them. Yeah, this stuff's pretty, I mean, obviously at a high level, distributional issues are not technical. Once you get into weighting, like it gets pretty technical. Like, there's an elasticity. What's an elasticity? There's a formula. We're already beyond what a lot of folks are comfortable with. So like a range that you're discussing, like having a range would kind of quickly seem kind of abstract. Obviously, there'd be possibly very significant real world consequences, but it would quickly seem pretty abstract and hard to understand from the perspective of the political officials that would ultimately need to decide those things.